I had to get through some of the awful parts. So there's a relationship in here with someone called Dennis. And that was a relationship where I was really trying to tell myself I was extremely happy, because this is the person who looks great on paper, and probably a lot of you have had that person in your life, the person that you should be with, because they would be good for you, because they're emotionally healthy in ways that you're not. So you should be with them, and you'll be happy. So I tried to convince myself that I was really super happy with this person, that it was great. This is a normal person. I grew up without any normality, you know, in any way, and I didn't know what it was, and I couldn't trust myself anymore. So this is like a Thanksgiving, you know, here in the city. Another character is Christopher, my literary agent, who'd become my best friend at this point. So I asked Christopher, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And he told me he was having a bunch of people over. Christopher lived in a massive rent-stabilized apartment on West 79th Street since 1985. And not long after we met, he invited me to a birthday party for his ancient Samoyed, Ripley. I met a bunch of his friends, and it was like something out of a movie, all these funny, interesting people whom he'd known for decades. We all saw the deep insanity of throwing a party for a dog, yet it was sophisticated and great. I was the opposite. I lived in a series of junky studio apartments. I had lived in a series of junky studio apartments for as long as I'd lived in Manhattan, and I was terrible at making friends. This bothered Dennis. He'd even said, I wish you were more social and had more friends that you could bring to the relationship. I feel like I'm the one with all the friends. And on Thanksgiving, I would meet several of them, because Dennis was hosting the holiday meal at his L-shaped studio apartment on West 72nd Street. The apartment had been improved since me. The boxes had been unpacked and had contained mostly expired pens and stationery from his previous job. And after several trips to Pottery Barn, it was slightly less pitiful. I was excited. Normal, stable people celebrated holidays. We went shopping at Fairway, and Dennis had already laid out several cookbooks on the kitchen counter. I'd assumed cooking would mean throwing a turkey into the oven and opening a few cans of cranberry sauce while we lay in bed and watched pay-per-view until the guests showed up. But this was not the plan. The plan was for Dennis to create several painfully elaborate and complex dishes from Cook's Illustrated, using each skillet, pot, utensil, and pan at least once. And my job was to remain fixed in place at the shallow stainless steel sink in his narrow galley kitchen with a scouring pad to wash and dry, a never-ending one-man assembly line. By the time the guests arrived, my hands were red, swollen, and steaming, but I felt like I'd participated in preparing the meal. It was our Thanksgiving, even though the table was populated with an increasingly strange group of strangers. Sam and Paula seemed like a normal enough couple, if a little grim. There was Stevie, a gay guy with tacky blonde highlights, plus two single women who looked so remarkably similar I couldn't tell them apart even when I was seated directly across from them. The odd thing about Dennis's friends was that they all behaved as if they'd been dragged to this affair. Nobody spoke unless Dennis started the conversation. So Paula, how's work? Good. Busy. Silence. Hey Beth, I heard you went to Buffalo for a vacation. How was it? Nice, but cold. Was I perfectly insane? Because I could not recall ever being among a group of such seemingly dead living people. They were entirely joyless, except for Stevie, who spoke in a kind of unwittingly comical gay slang. So I told her, girl, you ain't right. Sam and Paula weren't married, but had been together long enough that people assumed they were. They also bickered in hushed tones so frequently it was natural to assume they were not only married but headed for divorce. No, Sam, I said the pepper, not the salt. You said the salt, Paula. Maybe you were thinking the pepper, but you said the salt anyway. They're both in front of you now. Take whichever one you want. Dennis did a heroic job of keeping the conversation as light and jovial as possible, though it had seemed to be an inordinate amount of time of preparation, each measurement involving him sliding a knife over the top of a half teaspoon or a quarter cup so that it was perfectly exactly level, not a crumb more or less. The meal really was delicious. The turkey was great, although you did have to watch out for those small, brittle little sticks of rosemary. The food is spectacular, Dennis, I said, and this pleased him. I think the stuffing is a little dry, he said. I should have used more liquid from the mushrooms. There arrived a period of silence when people were concentrating on chewing, and it was during this period that Dennis suddenly let out a high-pitched scream and covered his mouth. "Oh my God," he cried through cupped fingers. I tensed. Was he choking on a wishbone? Did he bite down on his tongue? Then a terrible thought. Was there part of a rat in the cream stench? He shoved back away from the table, shrieking, My cap came off! Oh my God! There, through the gaps between his fingers, I could see a drilled down stump right in the front of his mouth. I glanced down at his plate, and there lay one of the perfect white teeth I had so admired and complimented him on, stuck into a braised baby carrot flecked with fresh mint. Others noticed it too, and there was a stifled but audible laughter. When he pulled his hands away, he forgot to close his mouth, so he cooked kind of like a hillbilly. I saw tears spring up in his eyes, and he grabbed the carrot with its embedded tooth and rushed into the bathroom. He slammed the door closed, something he never did, not even when he had a bowel movement, I discovered. Dennis was a bathroom door wide open kind of guy, which frankly freaked me the fuck out. That's how I knew how upset he was. For him to actually close the bathroom door, this must be serious. I felt terrible for him, and I considered rushing back after him, but something told me he wouldn't appreciate it. With Dennis now gone, nobody said a word, and I didn't even attempt to make conversation, even though, as the new boyfriend of the host, part of my co-host job description was making conversation. When Dennis returned a few moments later, he was smiling like absolutely nothing happened, his tooth restored to its central position. He took his seat. "Sorry for the drama and confusion," he said, grinning. It was a new crown. I was able to cram it back in place, but I definitely need to see a dentist. Paula, whose cold bitterness rendered her less interesting than underbed dust, remarked, "I had a silver filling fall into a bowl of cream of wheat once." I thought, but did not say, "Of course you did." Gay Stevie chimed in. "Sometimes no teeth can be an advantage." I was with an old man who had dentures, and let me tell you, when he pulled them out of his mouth, ooh, sister, that old gent had a certain, shall we say, gift. The two women I could not tell apart hadn't actually spoken. They merely offered meek smiles of either feigned interest or compassion, depending on the circumstances. I was entirely miserable. Was this really how it was supposed to be? Dennis had known these people for years. They were all normal people, and because they were his friends, they would soon be my friends too, our friends. Normal people hadn't been molested or reared by a clinically psychotic mother, an alcoholic father, or a perversely mad psychiatrist who wore a Santa hat and performed toilet bowl readings. These were normal people, and I lived among them now. I thought, this must be what I want. So, spoiler alert, it wasn't.